Tonight, connecting with Canadian voters as patriotism soars north of the border. Pierre Poilievre's pledge to create a united, rich nation in a campaign-style speech.
We will bear any burden and pay any price to protect the sovereignty and independence of our country.
The strategy shift as parties build off national pride.
We're going to control our future. We are going to build our future.
Tough talk on tariffs from Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister on the global stage.
If the U.S. administration is doing that to Canada, you're next.
How world leaders are reacting to Donald Trump's ongoing trade threats.
We need to unite.
The GST tax holiday comes to an end, but did businesses or consumers benefit?
Lower taxes is a good thing.
Well, we'll save the tax today and take advantage before it goes back to normal.
And celebrating 60 years.
Give a round of applause to this amazing flag.
How Canadians are wrapping themselves in red and white on this Flag Day.
Without you, dear flag, Canada wouldn't exist.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Hundreds of Conservatives rallied in Ottawa today. The party's leader starting his speech with a quote from the country's first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, pledging to create a united, rich nation. Pierre Poilievre's campaign-style event looked to refocus his messaging, faced with a changing political landscape as Donald Trump's tariff threats unleash a patriotic wave among Canadians. CTV's Jeremy Sharon starts us off.
Introduced to a crowd of hundreds of Conservative supporters by his wife.
Are there any patriots in the room who are ready to put Canada first?
Pierre Poilievre leaned into a new patriotic theme with a clear message for Americans.
We are mild-mannered and made of steel.
He pledged a strong response if the U.S. moves ahead with tariffs, vowing to match those imposed on steel and aluminum, and said he'll respond dollar for dollar against generalized tariffs if he becomes Prime Minister.
Let me be clear. We will never be the 51st state. We will bear any burden and pay any price to protect the sovereignty and independence of our country.
Poilievre also focused in on policies in his platform, promising to eliminate regulations in the energy sector and pledging support for a national west-to-east pipeline. He vowed to bring premiers together within 30 days of taking office to eliminate barriers to interprovincial trade and committed to increasing defense spending with a focus on the Arctic. But he also doubled down on a key campaign message.
The carbon tax will be an even bigger issue in the coming election than we thought. Combining Trump's tariffs with Carney's carbon tax will decimate our industries and destroy the jobs of our workers.
But as the Conservatives look to tie Liberal leadership frontrunner Mark Carney to the Liberal Party's missteps,
everything is broken.
Everything is broken. Fake news.
Fake news.
The Liberal Party is looking to tie Pierre Poilievre to Donald Trump.
No one who says this great country is broken will put Canada first. Right. And no one who worships Donald Trump should negotiate with him.
The refocusing for the Conservatives comes as many public opinion polls have recently shown the Liberals are reducing the gap with the Conservatives, raising more questions about just how soon Canadians could be heading to the polls. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you. For more, I want to bring in political analyst Lori Williams. Lori, this rally certainly felt like the unofficial launch to the Conservative campaign. Was this also a rebranding effort?
It certainly appears that way. We've been hearing up until this point things like axe the tax and Canada's broken. But this is different. This is Canada first. And an attempt to appeal both to Canadians and Americans about what we share in common and what we can find in the way of mutual solutions.
Now, polling shows a narrowing gap between the federal Liberals and Conservatives this week. What does this mean for the parties?
Well, we're seeing a response on the part of the Conservatives indicating both rank and file and the leader are concerned about those polls. And they've got lots of money to contest this, lots to sort of try to appeal to Canadians about what they've got on offer and to challenge what Mark Carney has to offer.
Lori, thank you for your time. Ontario Premier Doug Ford took on the topic of tariffs when he spoke to Fox News, warning that Canada could shut down the U.S. economy if there are barriers to trade.
We could shut down the American economy, Canada alone. Just imagine if your farmers didn't have the potash or the uranium for your nuclear weapons or the nickel or the aluminum or the oil. It would come to a screeching halt. There will be layoffs in American plants. There's going to be inflation. We do $1.3 trillion in trade.
Ford says he will be back in Washington next week to speak with the Trump administration. Provincial and territorial leaders were in Washington this week pleading Canada's case against tariffs. Trade wars and economic protectionism also front and center at a security conference in Germany. That's where Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister was sounding the alarm for European allies. As CTV's Colton Prale reports, her message to them: you could be next.
Tariffs are great, actually.
With countries around the world facing the threat of Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs and calling them an existential threat to Canada, Melanie Joly offered a blunt assessment of what the global community can expect of the new American administration.
We're the canary in the coal mine. If the U.S. administration is doing that to Canada, you're next.
This week, Trump announced plans for a sweeping tax on every country he says is impairing American trade. Now, European leaders are calling for a united economic defense.
The wrong answer would be that we would answer from America first, with Germany first, or Canada first, or France first. We need to unite.
That message echoed by Canada, particularly as Trump continues to target the country's sovereignty. At the Munich Security Conference, Canada's allies are taking notice, even if they've been slow to speak out publicly.
I think they're stunned. It is a question of tolerance and whether what we're seeing is simply a diplomatic global version of the art of the deal.
But others see Trump's threats to Canada, Greenland, and Panama as more severe.
We are entering a new phase of neo-imperialism.
Hubner says it means other world leaders will need to coordinate strong responses to Trump much quicker than they have so far.
All the things are happening in quick time. And I'm not really very confident that both sides on the Atlantic are coming up with a kind of common response.
In her remarks, Joly said it won't be politicians who change Trump's mind, but emphasized Canada has had success when they've convinced the American people to push back and to tell Trump the two nations' interests are aligned. Heather.
Colton, thank you. Huge swaths of Canada are digging out from a massive snowstorm as another round barrels down. Ontario getting hit today with another major blast of snow. The storm had plenty of people digging out in Ottawa. A similar story in Toronto, where Saturday's storm left close to 10 centimeters on the ground. That city could see up to 35 centimeters by Sunday. Quebec also getting hit hard. 40 centimeters of snow could fall in Montreal by the time the storm passes on Monday. South of the border, a major winter storm is putting 20 million people at risk. The wicked weather is widespread from coast to coast, bringing heavy snow and blizzards in some parts, flash floods and tornado warnings in others. A lot of Canadians were braving the weather today to take advantage of the final hours of the GST holiday. Ottawa's tax break wraps up tonight, although some groups are pitching for it to be made permanent. CTV's Sarah Plowman has that story.
In a last-minute effort to save, some shoppers splurged.
I'll save the tax today and take advantage before it goes back to normal.
Stocking up today to dodge taxes tomorrow.
You're stocking up quite a bit. How long do you hope this will last?
I think this could last for a year.
At midnight, the GST and HST holiday ends, 2 months after it started. It means no more tax break on a list of items like some alcohol, restaurant meals, and children's clothing. For some, the policy brought a boost.
Lower taxes is a good thing.
Others aren't impressed by the move or government.
Let's stop the carbon tax.
Here, the tax holiday didn't hurt, but it's unclear if it helped.
People like it. Whether it's a driving force to get them out here or not, I don't know.
When it started, businesses had little time at a busy time to change their point-of-sale systems. Now they'll reverse those moves. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business found only 5% of small businesses saw stronger sales compared to last year. Restaurants Canada notes sales were up nearly 8%, and the industry created nearly 3,500 new jobs.
We would prefer that it be made permanent. For us, taxing food and making food more expensive is just bad public policy.
CFIB welcomes a conversation about taxes, but thinks its members would have other priorities about what needs to be changed.
Corporate small business income tax rate, we should look at lowering that. The carbon tax is slated to increase again on April 1st.
Tomorrow, when the tax comes back, adding between 5 to 15% to a bill, depending on where you live. Some worry customers will see this as a price hike and spend less. Although many people I spoke with today say this tax holiday didn't change their behavior at all. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Canadian outrage at the ongoing aggression from the Trump administration was on full display again tonight at a highly anticipated hockey game.
Oh, say, can you see?
Fans of Team Canada at the Four Nations face-off in Montreal loudly booing Team USA during their national anthem. The patriotic anger also boiling over on the ice with 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the game. Pride in Canada and all things Canadian seems stronger than ever right now, and that is particularly true on this Flag Day. As the nation marks 60 years of our red and white design, CTV's Kamal Karmali now with the impact of the maple leaf.
Go Canada! Seems quite fitting that on Flag Day of all days, Canada takes on the U.S. in international hockey for the first time in nearly a decade.
Well, you know what, it means a lot, you know, to put this jersey on.
It's the NHL's Four Nations face-off, but unlike this inaugural tournament, Flag Day has a much more storied history, this year celebrating the 60th anniversary of the maple leaf becoming Canada's symbol.
It was a proud moment and a proud debate, I would argue, in our national evolution.
Right after Confederation, Canada used the UK's Royal Union flag. Then in the 1870s, the red ensign was used unofficially. Decades later, a new coat of arms was added. Then in the 50s, the leaves on the flag were changed from green to red. Not long after, the House of Commons sparked a national debate over a new flag before adopting our current design. This year, though, it's taken on a whole new meaning.
It's never been like this before, and you know what? It feels damn good.
An outpouring of pride showcased today. At events across the country, Canadians banding together.
One leaf representing our unity.
In defiance of U.S. President Donald Trump's comments and the threat of charging tariffs on Canadian goods, now former prime ministers calling on Canadians to display the flag, and people have been buying in.
We've been running off our feet. I've never been this busy in February.
But I was there when you were born.
This veteran even wrote a letter to the flag.
Without you, dear flag, Canada wouldn't exist.
With the divide between Canada and the U.S. only growing with each new tariff or threat posed by Trump, it's hard to imagine this Canadian pride fizzling out anytime soon. Heather.
Kamal Karmali for us tonight. Thanks. Coming up.
Anything about us without us is unacceptable.
Ukrainians react to Trump's call with Putin over a peace plan. Plus, Canadians campaign to shop local, but where does that leave big brands? Bold words today from Ukraine's president as he addressed a global security conference and called for Europe to create its own army.
I really believe that time has come. The armed forces of Europe must be created.
Speaking in Munich, Volodymyr Zelensky said that the days of guaranteed American defense of Europe are over and that the continent needs its own standing army. His comments came on the heels of the U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine saying Europe would not be a part of any peace talks. The idea of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine were kickstarted this week by U.S. President Donald Trump. Some in Canada's Ukrainian community have been left rattled by what could come out of this scenario. CTV's Alex Karpa has reaction.
We are certainly worried about our family and what the next few months may hold.
Ukrainian Canadian Nick Kravets has family living in the war-torn country.
We talk almost daily with our relatives in Ukraine. They are very worried. That's what the mood in Ukraine is like. And I think the sort of prevailing sort of narrative in Ukraine is that this is unacceptable. Anything about us without us is unacceptable.
Oleg Klochak arrived in Winnipeg from Ukraine with his family in April of 2023. He too says his family back home is concerned about the rhetoric coming from the U.S. president, which he says does not favor Ukraine.
I'm so upset, but at the same time, I hope for our peace. I hope for help towards negotiations.
Others are worried history could be repeating itself.
I hope this is not, Czechoslovakia gives up part of its territory for peace moment, because we all know how that ended.
Both Trump and the Kremlin say Ukraine will have a say in the negotiating process, but it's unclear what role it will play. The Ukrainian president told U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance Friday that his country wants security guarantees before any talks to end the war and would only agree to meet in person with Putin after a common plan is negotiated with the U.S. Alex Karpa, CTV News.
Hamas released 3 more Israeli hostages today, including an Israeli-American whose daughter was born while he was in captivity. All 3 hostages have been reunited with their families after a dispute this week threatened to derail the deal. In exchange, Israel freed 369 Palestinian prisoners. Tens of thousands of Serbians protested into the night in one of the biggest demonstrations against their government over a deadly railway disaster in November. Demonstrators blame the deaths of 15 people on government corruption after a newly renovated railway station collapsed. Still ahead, the Buy Canadian movement. How do big-name franchises fit in? Since Donald Trump began his push to slap Canada with punishing tariffs, consumers on this side of the border have responded with a Buy Canadian approach, encouraged to support local businesses like mom-and-pop shops, cafes, and restaurants. But where do those big-name brands that also employ plenty of Canadians fit in? CTV's Garrett Berry has more.
The lunchtime rush isn't all that big during a February cold snap in St. John's. More prep than pressure in this kitchen. Winter is always a tough time for restaurants, but something shifted in the past few weeks.
I think people are quite aware that big things are coming, big changes.
Franchise owner Trudy Chafe says her regulars have been cutting back as politicians talk trade, taxes, and tariff threats on the news each night. For her, it couldn't come at a worse time.
It's our months where our expenses are at an all-time high with, things like snow clearing and our heating costs.
And in some ways, she's on the outside looking in on government campaigns, urging customers to shop local. Her restaurant is a Canadian franchise with other locations in Alberta, Manitoba, and Ontario. Chafe says that's often overlooked.
Clear up that misconception that we are corporately owned and we have this huge pot of money backing us because we are independent.
Lobby Group Restaurants Canada says the industry is split, roughly 50-50 between independent restaurants and chain brand names.
The challenge comes, I think, for consumers is what is local, right? So if you look at a franchise owner, somebody who's purchased a franchise, they're a local person, they live in the community.
At her shop, Chafe says she's trying to get the word out about her business and how it gives back to the local economy.
I employ between 25 and 35 employees, depending on the time of year. And I support local businesses. I purchase local draft.
Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
Still ahead, move over Bugs Bunny. The new rabbit in town turning into a local celebrity. A special celebration tonight to honor what was known as the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes, an all-black hockey league founded in Nova Scotia in 1895. To honor the legacy of the league, a commemorative game was held in Dartmouth to mark its 130th anniversary. The game featured current African-Canadian players and some former local stars going head-to-head in front of fans.
It's an incredible honor to be sitting here 130 years after the first game was played in the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes and playing another game with two all-black rosters replicating those two teams, the Halifax Eureka's and the Dartmouth Jubilees. We're over the moon excited.
The league was in existence for 35 years. Tonight's game was also in honor of Black History Month celebrations. Well, the perfect pet can be hard to find. What's right for one pet owner may not be a match for another. That's what one woman in BC found out in her search for companionship. And as CTV's Adam Sawatsky shows you, she couldn't be happier with her oversized bunny buddy.
Before she started walking with a bunny in her backpack, Armida Ortega was hoping to find the perfect pup.
It is too big, it's too small, too old, and we never got a dog.
And never considered adopting a bunny because they were too timid, until at an animal shelter, she happened upon Toffee.
Every time they would approach the cage, she came. And she was like, pick me up, you know.
So Armida picked the rescue rabbit up and quickly realized she never wanted to let Toffee go.
I was so happy because, I can play with the bunny, right?
Well, Toffee is playful. When Armida brought her home, she discovered the bunny's also headstrong and nicknamed her Cleopatra.
I make the face like this, and sometimes I open the door in the bedroom and she's there in the bed, like she owns the bed.
When she wasn't reigning over the dining room rug or claiming the carpet while watching TV, Toffee Cleopatra seemed increasingly curious about expanding her territory outside.
She goes very excited, and I open the door and she just runs inside to the garden.
Toffee liked it so much, Armida started buying clothes to keep the bunny warm no matter the weather, which inspired her husband to build a mini wardrobe to organize a collection of outfits for all sorts of occasions.
Butterfly swings, Halloween, Ukraine colors.
Although, when Armida started carrying Toffee further afield, like to this nearby beach, the bunny would simply wear her birthday suit and stretch out like a sovereign of sand.
And it's when I say we should buy a backpack.
It took the bunny a couple days to start jumping into the backpack on her own, Armida says. But now that she does, they go for regular walks together, where Toffee finds patches of land to preside and people to inspire.
You are so cute. She is just absolutely darling. Just made me smile. Oh my gosh.
And Toffee Cleopatra makes Armida feel grateful every day that instead of finding the dog she thought she wanted, she discovered the adventurous rabbit she really needed. Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, White Rock.
That is one adventurous rabbit. And that is our show for this Saturday night. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. I'm Heather Butts. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.